destroying the terrain of your mind like an imaginary Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. This is I, Underwood, return to speak, and this is a video request I had from Jarl requesting how to know about doing knowledge checks in Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. How do I do them? I basically think he thought, well, you know, it's kind of booty the way that they do them, and it is. The way they do them is horrible. Now listen, every player in my game, any game I run, you own a notebook, you buy a notebook, you bring a notebook to the game. Now, when we do your Prelude, I run a one-on-one session just about with everybody before we start into a campaign. Add background knowledges that you have. I give you 3 rolls. And we see how those rolls come out. And then based on those rolls, I start telling you things. What you know about the city. What you know about goblins. What you know about ancient elven. What you know about getting smacked in the mouth. And I guarantee you it's going to be a lot. So, I give you the list. This is the stuff you know about. These are the gods that you know about. This is what you know about those gods. So you have that framework to work from. You actually know what your character knows. Now, you don't just come upon someone and go, hey, I'd never considered bugbears before, but damned if I don't know what you are now. No, that's ridiculous and stupid. And here's the really, really dumb part of it. Let's say you encounter bugbears twice. Right? You get what I'm getting at here. This is where the rule doesn't make any sense. All right, day 1, we're out in the woods. I encounter bugbears. Knowledge roll. Boop, fail. Day 2, out in the woods. You encounter bugbear. Knowledge roll. Incredible success. You know, natural 20. Now, granted, I may have learned some bits and facts about bugbears academically from studying the way that they worked. But however, I don't know that they're bugbears. I don't know all these other bizarre things about them. The natural 20, by their rules, how it's set up, what I know will state. You know, the natural 20 on knowledge bugbears roll, you know, what is that? Like knowledge, humanoids, knowledge local, which is a horrible skill. Like it's so like they clearly like didn't put time into it. They're like, oh, yeah, knowledge local applies to here. Maybe I want it over here. And I don't know, man. Just y'all figure it out. Anyone's trying to take that skill anyway. Of course, you know, that's a skill I have to take. The reason I say it's horrible, it was done with such a lackluster, which is very atypical for 3.5. They usually clearly define things, and it's just very important. It's, of all the skills they have, it's the most poorly written out one, you know. So, you're going to have that stuff. Now, you go, oh, well, how do you learn more? You go in your research, and when you research, you start learning things. And you might research by going and hauling a bugbear back to town and saying, fuck is this thing, man? It tried to come upon us. We smacked it in the mouth, down and went like a bitch. And we found it had opulent treasure on it for some reason. Because we all know bugbears be loaded with decadence. Hell, I'm a bugbear. I'm trying to get me some guards up in the game. I mean, you are going to get robbed. It's a joke in my group. But outside of bugbears, fear for their own safety on the streets. The streets can be a wild-ass place if you're a rich-ass bugbear. So, the bugbear, you haul his ugly-ass carcass back down to town, and maybe somebody tells you about it. Okay, so you start to amass information. Now, remember that fighter is like, oh, that's a bugbear. But maybe, like, you know, way down the line later, it's like, what was that thing called? The bear man? He might not quite remember. He might not retain information. Remember, knowledge skills are really about being able to retain information, just like an academic study. You took a class, your ass wasn't paying attention, and you may well not retain that information. You may have been exposed to it, but not retain it. People do often a very, very pathetic job in role-playing games to portray retention of information. There are lots of bits of information you will be exposed to through the course of your life that you just will not remember 3 years later. You just won't do it. You might not remember them 3 minutes later. Let's not affront. There's a reason for a saying, in one ear, out the other. So, the character who has those skills is going to retain that information much better. So you're stacking up, you're adding more, you're learning. Now you say, oh, my character goes and does research. Well, how do you explain that? I tell you what you fucking learned. I tell you what the book's about. Okay, what are you trying to research? All right, make a roll under that knowledge skill. Oh, you rolled a 1. Oh, I don't have any books. You didn't find anything. You rolled well. Okay, ooh, you found this, and you know, and I'll start giving you authors and titles, and I have all kinds of stuff put down in the game. But you can come up with a name. Yes, you know, it's Jack Hilton's Anatomy of Goblinoids. Boom, right there. I just came up with that on top. sounds perfectly fine to throw that detail out to someone in the middle of the game. Oh, Jack Hilton's biography, write Jack Hilton down. Oh, what does it say? And then you throw in like a little misinformation. You acknowledge there should be a little bit of corruption information, a little bit of misinformation, and that can make things so much more believable, so much more interesting, so much more entertaining and fun to portray out. Remember, the most mileage you get out of anything isn't the correct answer. Because in role-playing games, divorce yourself from the idea of winning is anything other than role-playing to the hilt, role-playing that character to the hilt. That is winning. That is entertaining. That is what you do. As a player, as a game master, you entertain. You entertain each other. And it is incumbent upon the player to entertain, to bring forth the best they can with the character. So anything like that could give you a great wealth of information. And there are a lot of different ways you can do that in the game. But like I said, when you're researching, instead of saying, okay, I may or may not have you make a roll. Sometimes I'll run 3 or 4 game sessions without making the players roll 1 die, even in combat. Because I like to change the tempo, I like to change the pace, I like to run in ways that keep the characters from getting comfortable. Once they get comfortable, they get contemptuous. Once they get contemptuous, they get bored. So I change it up, make them always invested, interested. There might be a game, 3 game sessions in a row, no dice at all. The next game session, man, I'm making a roll like crazy. Every possible thing, I'll roll for that, roll for that, roll for that, roll for that, because it changes the tempo, it changes the style of game, and that's a good thing to do as a tip to any sort of game master out there. So, with the knowledge, you start off at the beginning, your roll, so you know something, and then we go through. And as you're learning, I also will force you to increase ranks. Like, oh, you learned a lot of religion. I see your religion is still 2, but you learned a lot more. So let's bump that up to maybe a 3, maybe over 2 levels. Maybe we get that up to a 4. Oh yeah, that makes sense. We'll do that. Remember, character skills. Do not just let your characters take whatever skills they want. It's like, oh, we walked across the field. I think I'm going to learn some more streetwise. What? You walked across the damn field? That was the adventure. Oh, no. My character constantly streetwise. I have to get them match ranks, son. Does you feel me? Don't let characters whore your game like that. You call it game raping or game whoring, whatever you want to call yourself. Don't be that. Don't walk the streets for your players. Make sure that stuff makes sense. But don't say no. You can't take that. Or even if they have extra points, say, well, you gotta get some training. You have to have a justifiable explanation to advance. Just like you do in life. It's not like, well, I got me a level once, so yeah. How about I get no. You get the dirt is what you get. So, hopefully that's adding some clarity. Just interject the real details. Stop, take a moment, take the time to give them what they've actually earned. Explain the dogma and history of Tempest, of Merkel, of Asmodeus, whatever it is. Explain it to them in character from an NPC. Explain what the book says. Explain the history of the wars of the hobgoblins against the dwarves, and they go, oh, yeah. Put those details in there. With a lot of the stuff you can pretty much easily come up the cuff with. And you can just have a grouping of books. You see what direction the player is going in, so you can divide yourself some quick books. All you really need is maybe 3 or 4 sentences worth of information. And, that's the distilled amount, and a name, an author, if you want to put one on there, maybe an anonymous. It may even counter a book that's so damaged they don't have a title, they don't have an author, and that can add more flavor. So, think of those little sorts of details. Is it a stone tablet? Is it golden leaves? Is it a book? Is it just the face of a human Necronomicon style, or a spine for the spine, if you get what I'm saying, some spine joint? Is it pages of human flesh, or is it, some old papyrus scrolls? And then interject those details. Remember, your game quality is highly determined by the level of detail you interject. There's a whole bunch of other things going on, but that's really one of them. And in this model, when you are giving the players knowledge, make that count for something. Get your mileage out of everything you can. And I guarantee you, doing it this way, your characters will actually know how to roleplay their character better, because they'll have the information that helps predicate, okay, your knowledge, what you've learned in life, predicates largely who you are, what you know, how you speak, what you've learned about. If you just all of a sudden, the goblins were never relevant, but now in the 4th level, my character never had a thought. He cared about goblins, but, goblins, and then, now I know everything about goblins because I rolled 20, even though that was never part of my character before. So it adds an extra puzzle piece that doesn't necessarily need to be there. If that character was like a master of goblins. He had that natural 20 right at the bat. I go, okay, well, your character knows this, and this about goblins, and the tactics, names, all kinds of stuff. And then that could give you a little extra role playing push. They might be like, oh, I like my character being all specialized and knowing about goblins. So, man, I'm like, yeah, hold on, can I change? Let me change Elven. I want to have Goblin as a language. I want to be able to do this. I would go a parlay with some goblins. I'm like, well, you actually know so much about Goblin. I'm even going to have to give you a +1 bonus on that parlay because you speak Goblin. They're taking you seriously because you know how to edify them properly. You know how to use this diplomacy against goblins, and you might be able to squash it right off the bat. So instead of just and then leaving a character to momentarily potentially come up with something, you've given it, and they've had weeks to prepare, to think, and they have that notebook, right? And that notebook goes home with them, and then they can flip and go, okay, to get the weave of my character's psychology, to get the tapestry of my character's mind. Remember, you're not playing yourself. You're playing someone else, often an alien. An elf, a dwarf, a hobgoblin, these are alien creatures with different minds than human beings. And when you have even more details, their education, you can bring forth a more credible, believable version of that character. So we get away from the humans of funny hats. We get away from the same old song, because the more detail you as a game master give them, the more detail they as a player give you, the more beautiful creation you can come up with, the more invested they're going to be, the more they're going to be thinking about the character away from the game, the more you're going to be thinking about it, the more idea and energy and rush you're going to have during the game, and that is a wonderful thing. So hopefully in my meanderings, ramblings down the stream of consciousness, which is my form of expression, that some knowledge can be gleaned as far as how we do knowledge. So let me know what you think about that, how you like to do them, and hopefully that's a good answer to your request there, Jarl.